Muted, so let's move here in a second. Our agendas.
Yep, we'll turn it off.
Is that-
Yeah, we'll turn it.
Good afternoon, everybody. To our meetings, the Commissioners' Weekly Finance Meeting. Today is April 6th, year 2022. At hour 1:30 p.m. and it's arrived, so we call meeting to order, and as common practice, we open the meeting with an opportunity for public comment from anyone in attendance, virtually or in person. Okay, no one here, so we can move on to item 3 on the agenda, which is the approval of our minutes. We have the minutes in hand from our meeting of March 30th of this year.
Move to approve the minutes of March 3rd.
I second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, with that, we'll move into our topics of discussion today. We have several on here, so a lot of substance of topics. So our first one is our quarterly update and quarterly updates from the Cumberland Economic Development Corporation. And we have Gary Chickatano and Kristen Rowe. It's Kristen Rao. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm always asking Crystal, like, is it Kirsten or Kristen?
Got one of those complicated
One of
names.
those. Anyhow, well, thank you. And thanks both for being here. We'll turn it over to you guys both.
Okay, good to be back. And we are not going to go through every slide and all the data that we gave you. You had it well in advance, and certainly can give you an opportunity to ask any questions at the end. Just want to highlight some things. I'm going to do a little bit, and Kristen's going to jump in, and I'm going to jump back in. But the first slide that you have tell you we had to quickly adjust this slide on Friday, so I'm going to point out the change in it. As you well know from the CAEDC board meeting, that we are in the process of doing the workforce assessment and the strategic plan retooling with the efforts of Monica Gould, our consultant. And we did receive the final report, and that will be presented at the next CAEDC board meeting, which will be in two weeks. And the strategic planning retooling should start very shortly. We have a meeting tomorrow with Monica, and there was a setback of a week because of an emergency she had in her family, but we'll be moving forward with that probably in the next week or two. Third bullet talks about the compensation study, which you probably have heard about. We've hired a consultant to look at all of the jobs at CAEDC and to give us a better idea of post-pandemic what salary ranges should be for each of those jobs. And then also we started interviewing for the Director of Economic Development position, and Crystal Quinton and I are doing those interviews. We've done 3 so far. We have 2 more scheduled for Friday. And after those interviews conclude, we will be making a recommendation to the executive committee of top 2 or 3 candidates, which we hope that they will be able to interview in person and then narrow down the field from there. That Director of Economic Development position is so critical to the future of CAEDC. It's one we need to get filled pretty quickly. So we're moving as fast as possible with that. And then we would hope to have a final recommendation for the May CAEDC board meeting. The next bullet says interviews will start soon for the program finance and grants compliance position. And this is the change because Donna Gabberti, who accepted that position of Director of Finance and Administration a couple months ago, has decided that she just doesn't feel like that position is for her. And she's asked to revert back to the program finance and grants compliance position. I met with her yesterday or on Monday, and we agreed that that would take place. So now we're actively recruiting for a Director of Finance and Administration. So if you know of anybody with about 7 years of accounting and business management experience, send them my way, because we really need to get that position filled as well. And then shortly thereafter, hopefully, the board will soon be working on a plan to fill the executive director position. So we can get that filled with a permanent person and move forward. The organizational chart that you see on the right of that page is the proposed chart for the future. And there are some positions in there. Those that are highlighted in, I guess I'll call it tan, are future looking positions. And the rest are existing positions, some that are vacant and some that are filled. But this is the structure that we came up with after many, many, many hours of thought and deliberation, speaking to the staff about what we thought was the most productive way to manage the organization in the future. The other things I just want to point out kind of quickly before we get into the tourism side of things is that one of my priorities has been to work on the collaborative relationships with not only chamber folks and the 4 chambers in the county, but with other stakeholders, particularly our alliance members, our board members, our executive committee, and all those who have a real interest in CAEDC and want to see that succeed. And we're working hard to repair some damaged relationships and to build some new ones. And I think that's critically important moving forward. And then the last thing I want to point out here, and you're already aware of this project, and I won't get into details or naming it, but we're working very hard to bring a project which we feel will be a tremendous asset to Cumberland County into the county. We had a meeting yesterday, and certainly it was a very, very positive meeting. And I think if we can capture this project, it will be a real nice addition to Cumberland County and particularly to tourism in Cumberland County. So we're working on that. And with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Kristen, who's going to tell you everything you ever wanted to know about tourism and marketing in Cumberland County.
I'll try to keep it brief. I know I sent quite a few slides, but I wanted to start off with just a lodging overview for what we know from this year so far. So we get this data usually a month and a half to 2 months behind. So I was able to provide January and February. And I think the highlight here is that all of those numbers are green, which is really exciting for our hotels. So our occupancy is up, the average daily rate that the hotels are charging us up. Really good to see that recovery is continuing for our hotel industry. And we ended 2021 really strong as well. We were just shy of our occupancy from 2019, which were pre-pandemic. And then average daily rate and revenue per available room ended the year above 2019. So I think that's really great to see. And then to see that we're starting so strong this year, I think just shows that recovery continues.
Question on that.
Yeah.
So now over that period of time, we've seen a lot of replacement of some retired properties with some brand new properties. Do they have better pricing power? Is that reflected in the numbers at all?
We don't get property by property. So in talking to those properties, I think we're seeing that the new ones are really getting even above and beyond occupancy from the average. So I think Cumberland County's selection of hotels has been aging. So I think those are kind of bringing up the whole ability to charge the right rate and for that revenue.
Good sign. Thank you.
This next slide is about destination sales. So this is the hardest hit area for visitors bureaus really across the country. When the pandemic happened, this was group travel, bringing in group overnight business. So we've really decided to shift focus, and we're seeing a lot of success with youth sports beginning of this year. So hopefully you've seen the news about PIAA Championships coming out of Hershey into Cumberland Valley High School. We were assisted with that bid and assisted with them winning those championships. So we're going to be seeing field hockey, soccer, volleyball come in November, which our hotels are excited about because it's an off shoulder season and an off weekend. And then we're going to see football come in December. Hershey reported that football alone had an estimated economic impact of about 500,000, and about 1,000 room nights that we're anticipating just from football. So I think that's really exciting to see. And then the second one that I listed, we haven't heard back yet, but we're helping Keystone Aquatics put a bid in for the PSAC Swimming Championship. That would be 2023 through 2025, and that would be in February, another off-season month for hotels. So they're extremely excited about that. The economic impact on that was around 800,000, what was reported previously, and our event would actually have an extra day, so that would even grow that revenue as well. And they're looking at about 1,200 room nights for that event. Just a quick highlight on our website. So I'm not going to bore you with all of these numbers, but as you can see, our tourism website and our economic development website continue to do well. I think the big standout number here is that organic search sessions. So that means that people are ending up on those websites because they're typing them in and specifically going there, or we're showing up in Google searches without having to pay for showing up in search. So I think that's really exciting to see that those numbers continue to grow year over year, and that's through our team's efforts in writing new content, adding new information to be able to show up where we need to in Google searches. We have a new strategy for our economic development website. So with our strong in-house team this year, we're going through all of the content and cleaning it up, reorganizing that website to the best that we can in-house to kind of clean up past strategic plans and get it really set for when we have a strategy moving forward. So we're hoping that maybe next year we could fit it in the budget to do a site redesign to kind of relaunch cumberlandbusiness.com, which is our biggest marketing tool for economic development, and it'll be clean and ready to go for whatever our strategic priorities are. Just a quick highlight on new content and collateral, just to show we got lots of things going on both websites. As you can see on tourism, we launched a new coffee and chocolate trail. We have new events being added, new spring content. I think the most exciting bullet on here is actually that last one, to show that we have a 34% increase in events being added to our events calendar. That's always our top visited page on the tourism site, and I think it's great to see that our partners are starting to host these events again. The mainstay events that we've had in our county for years and years are finally coming back, and we're able to promote those again. And then on cumberlandbusiness.com, this year we really wanted to start focusing on success stories, whether CAEDC was involved or not. We just want to showcase the successes happening in Cumberland County at different businesses. So these are some that we were able to do. We have some upcoming topics there listed, but I think it's really exciting when we can do them for like the car shows or Grand Illusion Escape Room, because it ties tourism and economics together, which I think is always important to kind of see the impact of tourism has in our towns and in our community. For public relations, these are our big successes to date so far. So hopefully you all saw our Meal Madness campaign. So this was new this year. We started with our top 64 restaurants in the county, and we promoted them at like March Madness style bracket on our Instagram page. So we got about 674,000 media impressions, a lot of local media. That was a local promotion. While it was a fun promotion, it allowed us in earned media to really highlight our resilient restaurant industry, which I think was not as hard hit as some other areas across the country. We're getting back into hosting travel writers and influencers again. They kind of stopped coming through the pandemic, but we have one coming up in May, staying at Allenberry. We also got great coverage for the PIAA. As you can see, our circulation is extremely high, and it's because we had an article, we were mentioned in an article on Sports Illustrated, which was the majority of that circulation. And then we also got some nice coverage on the launch of the coffee and chocolate trail locally. Going down even further into some social media success, I included where we're at so far with all of our channels, but I think the highlight here is that through Meal Madness, that very bottom campaign, that really launched our Instagram up about 1,000. It took us years to get to 4,000, and then it took like 30 days to get an extra 1,000, so that was really exciting. That campaign resulted in 27,000 votes over that time period, and Valley Bistro won, so our team will be out there on Friday congratulating them and celebrating with them. But we're also trying some new things to get people engaged on our economic development channels like LinkedIn. If we did a promotion asking people to kind of represent their Cumberland County alma mater, and that went really, really well. Our trade newsletters continue to do well too. Our open rate continues to be up. Our partner newsletter, pre-pandemic, we sent monthly, and then we started sending it weekly during the pandemic, and we're just going to keep doing that because more people keep opening it and reading it. So it's just more opportunity to get our news out there into all businesses in Cumberland County. And then our visitor newsletter, that's sent to about 13,000 subscribers. Again, that open rate is up. And our beer trail newsletter, that is specifically targeted to people that want to hear about the Cumberland Valley Beer Trail. And you can see that open rate is 54%, which is pretty much unheard of to have an open rate that high, but I think it's just a testament to people getting the information they actually requested. Continuing with the beer trail, that generated 167,000 in economic impact last year. That is a low estimate because it's based on survey responses that we send out to people that we know participate in the beer trail. So it's a very small sample size, and they're probably not remembering all of the costs that it would have taken to get here and travel around and spend all their time here doing the beer trail. But we have a new passport launching at the end of the month. These are now digital passports, and I just wanted to include some statistics of the beer trail overall. So we launched that in 2017. You can kind of see how many check-ins and engagement we've had, but I think the most exciting bullet for me is number 4, where it says our regional market is obviously the highest use of the beer trail, but followed shortly by Philly and DC, which is our 2 primary advertising outlets. So to me, that shows me that those are working. We have 2 other trails. We have our ice cream trail and our coffee and chocolate trail. And these really came out of partner requests. Everybody was getting a little jealous of the Cumberland Valley Beer Trail and all the promotion and excitement that was getting. So we launched these 2 trails, ice cream in 2021, coffee and chocolate this year. And they're both doing great too. The new passport will be coming in May for ice cream. And while coffee and chocolate just launched, it's already the top number 5 visited page on our website. And that'll become a digital passport as well, where you can actually check into the locations starting next year. I'm just going to include a quick slide on all of our advertising campaigns. So a lot of these haven't kicked off yet just because of the time of year, but I wanted to show you how we break down what we advertise. So I included our leisure buy, which is to bring new people in to spend the night. Our trails buy, so we keep that segment separate, but that's beer trail, ice cream trail, coffee and chocolate. The local business awareness and recovery budget, if you recall, that was the Come Back Cumberland Valley campaign. That's where that started, that budget. And we've decided to continue that because it's promoting the impact of our local businesses to residents, which I think is really important. We're also doing a small buy to support the Cumberland York Area Local Defense Group, and then we also have our economic development buy. And then I wanted to point out that of all these budgets, 14% is being spent locally. So whether that's promoting the impact of our military installations, the services we have for economic development, or just all the great things as a resident can see and do. So when they're hosting their friends and family, they know where to take them.
What's the nature of the economic development media buy?
At the moment, it's a little bit on hold because I want to see our strategic plan out and understand what our focus is going to be. That budget is not big. So I think I'd like to understand, are we going to be going after site selection? Are we going to be promoting our services? Those types of things. So right now, internally, we're putting together some scenarios, but I'd like to see what the strategic plan highlights so we can make the best impact.
It's in the budget.
Yeah.
It's been spent yet.
Right. I guess I was curious if we were doing direct mail or mass media, and who's it aimed at and what's the.
Yeah, it would.
Sounds like there's a lot to be determined.
There's some to be determined. Historically, it has been targeted to local business owners through everything you listed, direct mail in our local publications. We've done interviews on Michael Parks, WHP 580, local radio spots, kind of just about local business support, business grows here, call your economic development agency. So that's what's historically been.
Promoting, in the past, we promoted some of the lending programs
Correct.
too, so
Correct.
maybe we'll see a revisit of that.
Yeah, sure. That's where we saw the most success. That's when the funds started bringing, is when we were pushing financing options.
Thank you.
Just real quick, I wanted to include a slide about our tourism leisure advertising strategy. So I mentioned we do spend some of that money locally, regionally. So that is aimed at residents that are hosting friends and family. That's the top reason people are staying in our areas. They're visiting friends and family. So we want to make sure they're good hosts and know where to take their friends. Really focus on just things to do, but also focusing on summer months and the holiday events because that's when most people are visiting friends and family. And then our leisure advertising, so listed under the WHO, those demographics have been what we've been working on year over year through research, through working with ad agencies, through doing our own just research, just kind of zero in on the most effective demographic to go after. And what we promote to them when we say Weekend Easy, that's our campaign that promotes weekend getaways. So we're promoting in Philly and DC. get out of the hustle and bustle of the city, come up for a weekend, and the beer trail is also very popular with that crowd as well. And obviously that market is a lot more expensive than our regional market, so we have to be super targeted in those months that we can afford advertising to that group. So that's why that window is a little shorter. I just have 2 coming soon slides. So our leisure advertising is going to kick off here soon. Just to show you some of the outlets. We don't have the budget to support television commercials or big billboards in Philly, so we have to be fairly strategic. So we use outlets like TripAdvisor, Expedia, bike share posters, just streaming TV, other ways we can get our content to that specific demographic without spending tons and tons of money. And then finally, I just want to do a plug. We have some research coming soon, which I think will be really exciting. We haven't done research on the tourism side in many years. It's expensive, but we did get some things in this year. So Arrivalist is a company that can track you through your mobile phone and see where you're coming from, how long you're staying in the destination, where, which locations you're going to, how long you're here. So that information will be really helpful to kind of verify that we are going after the right target demographics. Arrivalist is used by all the big tier 1 destinations, including the state tourism office. And we're hoping that they're going to include it in their co-op program that they're launching here soon. So we'll be able to use that service at a extremely discounted rate. So we're looking forward to that. And then we're also looking to do a 5-year economic impact report from our advertising. So tourism advertising is difficult because people don't call up a hotel and say, I saw an ad on Google that led me to book hotel. So the way to do this is if you place digital advertising, they can follow that user who saw your ad to a booking site and then track their stay from there. So the state tourism office included a trial of this in the co-op that we did last year. So just for July through September, it was $15,000 of CAEDC money matched by 15 of DCED funding. And they were able to indicate from that spend that we brought in 1.3 million in additional economic impact and about 40,000 visitors just from those 3 months of advertising. So that came back extremely positive. So we wanted to be able to see a full range of how we were performing pre-pandemic, pandemic, and now recovery, so we can make better decisions moving forward. I think. Back to you.
Okay, a couple other things we just want to mention to you. We mentioned about the local events group earlier, and there's some pretty good stuff happening there too. We just received a grant from them at the end of March for $73,102, and this will be going toward the post road design phase in North Middleton Township there at Carlisle Barracks. So we help improve that road. And there's also $23,102 of it going to the new Cumberland depot to look at the intersection of Old Depot Road and Old York Road. So we're trying to get that completed by the end of the year. And also in terms of grant activities, CCHRA has given us $100,000 for a CDBG grant, which we'll be pushing out as part of a loan pool. And then we were also, as you know, involved with that LSA grant. We pushed 15 applications through for a total value of $2,153,096. And the hard part about this is there's only $140 million available for all 67 counties, and DCED received $900 million in grant requests. So, 1 in 5 may get funded. There were a total of 1,900 applications received. So we like to be optimistic, but on the other hand, I'm a realist. So out of the 15 we submitted, may get 3 or 4 funded. In terms of the economic development projects, we have 4 RACP projects that are sitting over in Harrisburg waiting for the award announcement. That would be a total of $26,575,600 in community investment. and the potential administrative fees there would certainly be beneficial to CAEDC. And then there are several other projects that we're talking to business owners about right now that could significantly impact the economy of Cumberland County. One in particular is a food production facility that currently is in the county, but is just expanding like crazy. And they want to buy a bigger facility, looking at 40,000 square feet versus this little shop they have now. Actually started in somebody's kitchen as a hobby and has grown to them pushing out 500,000 units of a year. That's about a $2.5 million project. We've got other inquiries from business owners that we're talking to and working on. There's a lot going on. In terms of the lending that already exists, we have a loan portfolio right now with 28 projects in it, and we have 3 really good loan applicants talking to us right now, and we're either in the underwriting or pre-underwriting phase of those loans. And then just routine things like we just got our audit report and everything's fine with that. I forwarded that to the controller's office. So they have that, and when I get back to the office, then we'll be forwarding them the 990 report. We've updated our computer hardware, which was absolutely necessary. There were some people using laptops that were very, very old and very outdated. So we bought those people who needed them new laptops. We got docking stations instead of desktops. And I think, from what I'm hearing, they're a lot faster, they're a lot better than what they had. And everybody's pretty happy with that. Other than that, let me just say, I know you have other things to talk about today, that our phone's been ringing a lot lately, and that's good. I think I came on board January 6th or something like that. It was pretty quiet. And I think people are becoming more comfortable now moving forward with the projects that they've been talking about for the last couple of years. And because of that, the phone is ringing, and we're getting a lot of voicemails and email contacts, things like that. So I'm painting a pretty rosy picture because I really truly believe that there is a great future ahead for CAEDC and economic development and tourism and also workforce development. We just got to fill these jobs, and we're working on that. We can't move too quick, but we got to move quick enough. So there's a balancing act there. I am in constant contact with the board, particularly the executive committee, and more particularly with Crystal, who I think is an incredible asset to CAEDC. We have a plan. We'll execute that plan, and with the help of Monica Gold and her team, we're going to come out a really better, much better organization. Also, want to mention that the staff is just incredible, and Kristen and her team have just been hitting it out of the park when it comes to the things that she did today. I couldn't have asked to be handed a better team when it came to the tourism side of things. Now I got to build the other side of the house.
I have 2 questions, and the
Sure.
second one will be for you, Kristen. But Gary, I am looking at this strategic plan and organizational structure, and there are 5 positions that are open.
Yeah.
So there's you, and then there's no one on this business
Right.
development side. So how fast do you think we're going to get a new CEO in?
Oh, CEO, that's not the critical one at this point, Gene. Critical one is get the Director of Economic Development, Director of Workforce Planning, and Director of Finance and Administration. They're the worker bees. They're the ones that need to get done. I've committed to sticking around as long as I'm welcome and as long as the board wants me to stick around.
Okay.
That's not an issue. We got to get a good director of economic development, and good finance and administration, good workforce development person.
Because with all of these things coming in, there's no one to handle this.
Yeah, there is.
Well, I know, it just seems unreasonable. So my follow-up question to that, because I find that very intriguing, that there are 5 positions open.
Mhm.
Okay. And I just think about this as a new CEO. How do you know that your new CEO is going to like the people in these 5 positions?
You do not. But on the other hand, can you afford to take the time right now to delay hiring the economic development director, finance and administration director, workforce development director, till you get a CEO who then has to turn around and do a job search? And the answer to that is absolutely not.
While you're looking for these 5 positions that are open, are you also looking for the 3 future positions
No.
down here on the bottom, on the side? No.
Not right now.
Okay. Okay.
We got enough on our plate right now with that.
Okay. All right. Kristen, I have a question for you because Commissioner DeFilippo and I were at Cumberland Valley School District Saturday morning.
Were you?
Yes. They had a meeting of the school board and the municipalities, and the PIAA Championships. It's just like fantastic stuff, right? This is fantastic stuff. So I had commented that, I really thought Cumberland County and CAEDC could really be a very active partner in that. So are you knee deep in the hoopla on this?
We are very connected to the PIAA staff. We've met with them twice. We had them out meeting with our hotel partners in March, kind of specifically talked to our hotels about the requirements of what those teams are going to be looking for and how they need to be flexible, because you don't know what teams come in until a week beforehand. So our hotels are getting educated on that. We're actually going to create a hotel task force to meet with the PIAA team to make sure we're doing that correctly. And then our marketing team is working with the PIAA marketing team to make sure everybody feels welcome.
Is anyone talking with the superintendent at Cumberland Valley? Because if we're not, I think he would appreciate that. Like, not like an all the time, but just a, hey, we're on this kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think we're connected through the athletic director for the purpose of putting the bid in, but that's a good.
Yeah, I would
to make
Our
sure.
main contact is the athletic director.
Yeah.
But as long as you're mentioning that, Dave Christopher has invited us to serve on their initiative they're doing, the Portrait of a Student. So I've been attending that and talking to him. So he has access to me at those meetings. I have access to him. It's been a great partnership.
Good. Okay. Yeah. He's so excited. And so I'm glad that that's working. He is a great guy, and that, letting them know that, Kristen, that you've got this, you've got this PIAA and the hotel piece. Because that was the other thing I was saying, like, do our hotels know that all of these people are coming? And do our restaurants know? Because, like, there's a lot of preparation for these things. Does public safety know about it?
Yeah.
Know about all these people that will be.
Yeah, we really want to make sure that the whole community is ready and welcoming, so we can continue this, because we've been told by PIAA that they want this to be the new home specifically for football. So we want to maintain that as long as possible.
We're also, and Kristen will probably kick me for saying this, but we're also going after Big 33 game.
Good.
That's what we're chasing down now.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So that would be another big weekend, football weekend, Cumberland Valley.
Awesome. That's awesome.
And the work they're doing to their stadium, there isn't going to be
it is
nicer.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
There isn't going to be a nicer football stadium in Pennsylvania.
Yes, everyone at the table, it was a very large table, was very excited about it. So, and excellent. That's it. That's what I had. Thank you. But I am worried about you, Gary. I'm telling you, I'm worried about the level of work that you are doing.
Alcohol is a
YouTube TV. Cameras are on. Other questions? Kristen, fine job with the presentation, as usual. We're firing on all cylinders there. We're in an excellent place considering that we're really in recovery mode. So that's very encouraging news. It speaks well of the county. Gary, you're doing a terrific job.
Thank you.
We've got a lot of a lot of different irons in the fire, and I know they're getting full attention. So thank you. Appreciate your heavy lift on all of it. There's no other questions.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
You have a question?
No.
Wow. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Kristen made me walk up here from the office, so she's
Well,
trying
that's
to keep me
good.
healthy.
Sorry.
Okay.
Maybe you can scroll cover behind you guys. If that works, unless the three of you want to sit up I'm not like that was amazing.
Did you see that? She's followed through on those reports. Yeah, she sent them around, saying she contacted them by phone and by email to get their backsides in gear.
Oh, okay. Because if I get it today, I'll have time to read it tonight.
All right, we're, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
We're gonna move on to the second item. And that is a discussion and I guess we're looking at possible action today. And this is in regards to a tax incentive program for volunteer firefighters and volunteer EMT. This is, we've been turning this over for a little while, and I know you guys did a lot of detailed digging, so we're getting some recommendations.
This has been kind of a group effort between the four of us, so we'll be tag teaming it quite a bit. We'll pass it back and forth. Okay. Stacy, did you want to say anything to start? Okay.
Any comments later?
So we'll get right into it. At the February 28th finance meeting, the information was presented to you concerning implementing the tax incentive program for our volunteer firefighters at EMS. Bob is going to take a little bit of time to talk about the actual county fire companies and the EMS.
Sure. I did feel like as I was preparing some of my notes, I just thought I needed to say, one, we're certainly very thankful for the ongoing support that you've provided, both to public safety as well as the first responders. I mean, certainly a lot of projects, both from technology support and most recently the first responder assistance program. So I didn't want to obviously kind of overlook that moving into this as another incentive, but certainly thank you for the support you've already provided and continue to provide. So with that, certainly fire and EMS, you know, when you talk about volunteer across the county, we've transitioned to quite a mix. When you look at the different departments and even the demographics of the departments, you know, more suburban, urban, you know, across the county from the West Shore to more rural, maybe in the West. Many of the fire departments themselves rely mostly on volunteer, but there's certainly a shift now to some combination departments. So as we talk about eligibility requirements, and we discussed that quite a bit in our information gathering. Some of the departments have full-time drivers. Here in Colorado, we've had full-time drivers for some time. Silver Spring, Company 33, New Kingstown went to a full-time driver. And then you get into some part-time drivers, North Middleton, Mount Holly, some of those departments, Monroe Township. And then you get into like even a little bit more of a mix, like Hampton Township has an administrator. So he does more administrative duties, but also covers during his time, it can cover up and drive. Now, and then from there you go to like a public safety officer. Lower Allen Township and Camp Hill have for years had public safety officers that work maybe full-time and will cover calls as part of their job description. So you get quite a mix. Now the big thing that we found, if you talk to some of those people, while they might work full-time, they also have volunteer credits within their department or maybe another department. So while a paid driver, say in Carlisle, works full-time driving, they might volunteer at another company and meet volunteer eligibility through another company. The EMS anymore is mostly fully paid. So the EMTs, for the most part, have went to, at least for their first new ambulances, are fully paid staff. And then you do get a mix on part-time coverage or volunteer coverage for like the second ambulance or third ambulance from the stations. So, and that really runs a wide variety. So as I called around and talked to some people, like Carlisle, that's mainly paid for their first, second, third due ambulances, day to day, but then they have volunteers from like college students, their chaplain services, and talking to Nathan, he said they were mainly volunteer. So is that?
Okay, so I'll pick back up. And so during the presentation, we'll also show you what the potential impacts are to the individuals. We'll also show you the potential lost revenue or the cost to the county. And there are 33 municipalities, but we only had 2 respond in time to include in this presentation. We did have a third respond. I did run the numbers quickly and it aligns in the middle of the 2 that we have. So it was exactly where we expected. And then we'll talk about our recommendations, our concerns, and the next steps. So I'm going to put the picture up while I talk to the page. So the first set of numbers is the Carlisle Borough and the impact to the individuals. I did take the names out so you can't see who they are. This is the property values range from 20,000 to 300,000. The average property tax, or the average property value is 158,000, and the total county property tax ranges from about $44 to $660, with an average of 350. The slide shows you how it impacts the individuals. The first column of numbers is the assessed value. The second column is the county property tax. And then the next 4 columns are with the maximum of $250, how it would impact the individual. And the next 4 columns are $500. I highlighted the 250 and the 500 so you could kind of get an idea of where the major difference is and where they max out. And I am glad we got a second one because there's a big difference between Hampton Township and the Carlisle Borough. So it kind of gives us a good overview of what the potential differences are. Excuse me. The property values in Hampton Township range from about 63,000 to 600,000, with the average property value of 306,000. The total property tax ranges from $138 to $1,400, with an average of $670. And so, as you can see on this, there's a lot more that top out at the 250 and the 500. And I also, I'm not going to go into the individual impacts of the individual, but I wanted to make sure you had it so that you could look and see if you implement a 20%, a 40%, a 50%, or 100%, how it actually impacts the individual also. Then I took the two townships in the borough, township and the borough, and condensed the information into one. And the property values range from 20,000 to 600,000, with an average property value of 260,000. And the property tax ranges from $44 to $1,400, with an average of $570. And the total cost of that for the 2 municipalities, if we would provide 100% of the 250, is about $9,300, and 100% of the $500 maximum is about $16,000. Yeah, that's
Okay, thanks. Yeah, got it.
the next slide. I estimated what the cost would be if we implemented this in the municipalities that have an ordinance. And the 100% of the cost would be the 37,000, and for a maximum of 250, and 64,000 for a maximum of $500. And then I also estimated countywide, if the ordinance was countywide, and that would be about 155,000 for 100% and 270,000 for 100% at $500.
So Dana, I just want to mention one thing before we move on to the next slide. And that is, we were really fortunate with the two municipalities that provided, because the makeup and the range we felt was a really good sort of multiplier to understand for the 8 municipalities that have the ordinance, but also to kind of understand the impact for all 33 municipalities. So there was a really nice balance between those two.
Dana, just a comment, Hampton, their program, their credit is based off current income tax, not property tax.
That is correct. But we were able to get the eligible individuals and the addresses for those and run and check those against assessment. So it's using data as if it would be property tax.
Okay. You answered my question.
You want to take over the recommendation?
So we took a look at each of the ordinances, and they were very, very similar to some regard until you get to the actual eligibility. And what we would recommend is the eligibility period would be January through December of 1 year, and then that would then be processed the following year. So for example, the eligibility period would be January 1, 2022, December 31, 2022, and then it would be processed. That credit would be processed in 2023. We would recommend the 100% tax credit up to a value of $250. 2 reasons. One, that provides sort of a maximum impact on the individuals, sort of makes it worth their while to actually volunteer and provide their service to their community, while also keeping sort of the impact across all of the individuals somewhat tight. We felt like to go anywhere above $250, you start to see a very wide range of what the actual credits become. In terms of the eligibility, there are some municipalities that have a very tight sort of point system where every hour that they volunteer kind of equates to a percentage, and then that percentage equals a number of points that they receive. I think 1% in one of them, 1% equals 5 points, and then they have to achieve a certain number of points. That seems to be very probably manageable when you're looking at 6 to 10 people, but it is not as manageable when you're looking at potentially 600 or more individuals that we would really want to sort of assess with each fire company as to what their qualifications are for active, to develop something that ensures that we don't have people getting this credit for simply signing up and not showing up, but yet is not a burden for either the fire company, the EMS company, or the firefighter or other volunteer. And then one of the provisions that we thought was noteworthy is volunteers who are injured in the line of duty. We felt like it was important to provide that credit, even if they weren't able to meet whatever the qualifications are for that year, because they were in fact injured in the line of duty. But then it would definitely be in the line of duty. And then we just wanted to include on the slide that paid drivers, any paid firefighters, which I don't know that those exist, but we put it in there anyway, or paid EMTs would not be eligible unless they also provided volunteer services. That this is not simply taking a profession and providing a tax credit, that this is really emphasizing the volunteer status and the fact that we need more volunteers. And this is one more tool in the arsenal for recruitment and retention. Anything to add? Okay. And I will tell you that we spent team 2 hours yesterday trying to come up with every different scenario that we could think of. And I just think that some of the concerns, because we really want to make sure that you go into this eyes wide open in terms of where some of the pitfalls are. So one of the major pitfalls, it's not on the slide, is that I don't think we can just simply take what is existing and implement it, right? Because each municipality is focused on their municipality. And so this is really to have a countywide program would really need to focus countywide. And so with that said, we tried to come up with other pitfalls that could exist. And one is there are individuals who are not homeowners in terms of being on the deed, but in every other regard. They're maintaining a home, they're paying the taxes, they might be paying a mortgage if that mortgage exists. And that might be children, so someone who still lives at home, they're volunteering, but yet they're not on the deed, or a spouse. And then also, right now, the service locations are identified in these ordinances. And so we would recommend that the service locations could be outside of where these ordinances exist, as long as the homeowner, of course, lives in one of those municipalities. But the concern that brings is we now have to train a whole group of individuals at fire companies to ensure that they understand the importance of completing that paperwork and completing it appropriately. And then really, in terms of eligibility, we really need to strike a middle ground, accountability versus simplicity. So we want people to be accountable, but we don't want to create any barriers for people to be able to receive the credit. And then the other thing we started talking about yesterday, should this be a credit or should it be a rebate? Do we really want to put a credit on the tax bill, or is this something that a check is sent out to the individual after they've paid their taxes? Some of the ordinances for the municipalities handle it as a rebate or a refund, and some of them handle it as an actual credit. And so I think that is something we would really need to look at, how time consuming it would be for our staff in various departments to manage it, whether it was a tax credit or a tax rebate.
Still no big question. You don't have a recommendation.
I don't think we could come to a consensus yesterday. I know Dana, why don't you take that one?
So there are pros and cons with both. A tax credit, Wes can talk to this better than I can, but it would be a manual entry into their automated system. And they would have to remember every year to go in and update that one number, because it's an annual number. Me personally, I'm not big on manual, taking an automated process and throwing in a manual thing in the middle, because that's subject to more error. Did you want to?
Yeah, we would have to look at every person or every property, every application in there, but it's quite easy to actually give the credit. But having down is the tax notice. And if you look at it underneath the county real estate, we would just put FD/EMS and put the discount that you want there, and then it would automatically subtract the amount from the county. One thing was suggested was that if they pay a penalty, they didn't get the discount. And then another problem is if the property owner's taxes aren't $250, there has to be a couple of programming changes to establish the zero for the penalty if they pay a penalty, and also by changing the 250 or 500, whatever you choose, if the tax bill isn't that much. I talked to the person that does this, and he told me probably 3 or 4 hours. So I would think that they usually charge around $300 a month. I mean, an hour. And so, you're looking at $1,200 to do that
For the whole year.
Yeah. And then
Is that for the whole year?
that would be the one-time thing. You don't have to change the programming.
Gotcha.
And then we would, as you can see, we sort of ran out of room where the taxes actually are. So we would have to reconfigure, but we were planning on reconfiguring it anyway. So the tax notice, so that won't take long.
But manually, you would have to annually go in and update.
Every year, we would have to, and we expect that the firemen, the EMS would probably have to fill out a new application every year. And then we would have to look at it every year.
And you'd have to take the old ones out, put the new ones in.
But, and to do that, it will take, some time. And then I think more than us, hopefully Bob would be the person that reviews a lot of those applications. Or works with me or someone, or he assigns someone to work with us to verify, are we looking at the same thing? Because I think he would know more about it than we will about, should they get the discount.
Yeah, we'd have to have a process, obviously, for the fire chiefs submitting them. For the people that met the eligibility requirements, submit the packet by a certain deadline.
Can we make it simple and instead of countywide, if a particular township has a program, their people meet their eligibility, you check it over. If we agree with it, we match it. Simple as that. Up to $250.
I think the only problem with that is the person that may live in Carlisle Borough may not serve in Carlisle Borough. Like they may serve in Penn Township, for example.
Why would it matter?
Because the fire chief in Penn Township, because they don't currently have a credit, I think they would just need to be that additional step where the fire chief is confirming.
I can't see that happening that frequently.
I think we'd leave people out. Like right now, South Middleton and Carlisle in their ordinance has decided to do I don't know if it's really reciprocal agreement.
Right.
But some of the other municipalities have not. So
the group's recommendation is what?
I think our recommendation was that we thought it should be countywide, so we didn't leave people out.
When you say countywide, is that
If you volunteer anywhere in the county and you were a homeowner, you would be eligible for your credit.
even if you live in a township that has a fire company that doesn't offer that credit to their people?
Yes.
Under a municipal level. Okay, now. And that cost would be how much?
That was the estimated 155,000.
And that takes into account all volunteer that we know of.
It's an estimate.
It's an estimate.
We don't
It's an
have a
estimate.
list.
Okay.
But I do think that's probably a pretty close estimate. In fact, I'm pretty sure that might be a little bit high. Back when we used to
It
do,
is always conservative.
and back when we used to do the volunteer cards for active volunteers based on the requirements for active volunteer eligibility, we had about 600. That 155,000 at $255 is 620 people. So, I mean, to me, that matches. And in all honesty, if we're doing true volunteer, you're not gonna have EMS and some of the people that were eligible in the previous program, so.
So that 250 would be above and beyond anything they would get from a municipal.
Correct.
Okay, so you think that's going to cost some of the municipalities? Admittedly, we have several who really aren't jumping on this for them to back out and say, hey, the county's covering
Yeah, I don't know.
it. Yeah, I don't know either. I was asking the question.
I think it might do the opposite, frankly, as
Maybe.
if they're eligible for this county credit. And I think it really depends on how we market it. That, if we market it by saying we're following the lead of these 8 municipalities who have created this program, then I think people will start to question, well, wait, why doesn't my municipality have that? While also being eligible to receive the credit from the county.
Yeah, I can see it could go both ways.
Same here.
That'll be an interesting one to watch.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you could always, implement it in the,
And tweak it.
in the municipalities that currently have an ordinance. I think our recommendation would be not to limit it to service in those municipalities, so that if somebody lives in Carlisle Borough, but they don't serve in one of those 8 municipalities that currently has the ordinance, that they would still be eligible for the credit based on where they live.
Then some of the information on the tax rebate, it's leading up to the actual payment, it's the same. The fire, it's the same. The difference would be, instead of it discounting on the property tax on the bill, they would have to provide us a receipt or a list of who would be eligible. We could check that ourselves instead of requiring them to have a receipt. But then we would cut a check, similar to the property tax rebate program that the state offers for retirees or people over 65. But we don't have to follow their rules. We could make our own to make it easier to get the rebate. Main thing is that property tax receipt. That was one of the big fallbacks. Do we want to force them to have to get a copy when we have access?
And then you would then be able to, require someone, let's say an individual. I think Wes was actually sharing a situation that he knows about, where there's 2 volunteers of South Middleton, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, South Middleton Fire Company. They pay the taxes, they manage the home, they pay the mortgage, they just aren't on the deed. And if with the rebate, you could actually have a provision where the homeowner could attest that these are the individuals who pay the taxes and provide that credit in that situation as well. So it has a little bit more flexibility based on what eligibility you want to establish.
I think that's really important.
And in the rebate program, there's a little bit more risk of rebating more than what the person actually paid in via a duplicate payment. For example, if they're also eligible for a different rebate program, nothing would keep them from applying for both. However, if it's on the tax bill, it would show that discount. They wouldn't be eligible for the other one.
Okay.
The county's not going to make a duplicate payment, but
Right.
But we would also have to be mindful that we don't make a duplicate payment as well, because of what, Bob was sharing, that there are people who volunteer across multiple fire companies. And so we would have to be very mindful that we would synthesize those lists before we would start processing any payments out. And then we did have a talk about, the credit or rebate and how that would impact late and unpaid taxes. And the rebate would allow that payment to be made, only after, the taxes were paid, which there's a lot of benefit to that. And then, for late and unpaid taxes, you could decide you don't want to provide that credit, that it's only people who are paying, during the discount or the face value periods. I don't think we came to a consensus on a recommendation on that one either, but I think there's just a lot of flexibility there with the rebate program.
With the rebate and need an actual check,
Mhm.
that's additional cost. Not much.
Right. Mhm. And then, just along those lines with the comment about the cost of the checks, that, there would need to be a rejection and appeals process, obviously a review, the processing of the applications, that there's just staff time involved. We have an idea of how long we think it would take. And we were actually talking about really staff in any of our departments could be involved, or maybe a combination of staff from our departments could be involved in that processing. We didn't really have enough time to really flesh out what that cost would be, because in terms of how many people would there be versus if it was the 8 municipalities, if it was all 33 municipalities. But there would be, I think we determined, correct me if I'm wrong, that it would be a small cost, but it would exist.
So if you go the tax rebate route, are Are we gonna have requests for direct deposit to have to deal with that?
We potentially could, but it could be our opportunity to do like, I don't know what they're called, the cards,
Mhm.
where you issue a card instead of,
Mhm.
instead of a check.
Yeah.
And we have talked about moving in that direction at some point.
But this is something we would request every year, that we have to verify this every year. Because
Mhm.
I hate to say it, it could be abused.
If every year you would have to recertify, yes.
Mhm.
Or we could do it on a pilot basis.
Yeah.
2 years, 3 years.
Yeah, give the commissioners, whoever's on this board, the ability to tweak this.
Mhm.
If-
Yeah, the way the municipalities work it is their ordinance establishes the credit, and then a resolution is passed each year that provides the eligibility, and then any other tweaks that need to be made to the program are in that resolution.
Okay, that's good.
So a question on that, if you're doing a credit or rebate, that's presumably taxable income. Is it not?
I-
Federal level?
I do not think a rebate is eligible for income tax. But it does impact your taxes if you itemized and reduced your taxes because you paid it in. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's not standard deduction. Okay, I know we had that specific question whenever the rewards cards were used for that, yeah. So I don't know if that makes any difference whether you do it as a check or a card in itself, but it does raise the question of knowing what the tax implication is.
We have that question to talk with Keith, because my guess is that it's probably excluded because it's covered in the act that established the credit. But we're gonna ask the solicitor who is
But
the expert.
that's state. Wasn't it? The legislation is state legislation, right?
Yeah, but
Municipal ordinances are listed under the act, so.
Really, the guys who are looking the closest to the IRS, I just don't want anybody running afoul.
Right.
I'll defer to Keith.
Yeah, okay.
We could run it by the controller's office too for taxability. Yeah, but I don't think most of the time a tax rebate is. But if we start branching off and giving children and other people, that could change the taxability.
right. So we think the next steps would be to write a draft ordinance using some of the feedback that you have provided us, and then we're going to stop talking in a moment and let you throw all the feedback you'd like to at us. And it would establish sort of the initial eligibility along with the program parameters. And then we would outline the implementation and management of the program. And then we would really work to still gather additional lists. So still reach out to the municipalities that we haven't heard from to gather that information, to really get a refined estimate about what the true cost would be. Also start looking at, as we develop the management of the program, what would that cost internally, so that we can really provide a firm number. I mean, as firm as an estimate can be, even though I think Dana and her finance team, their estimates are always very close to what ends up happening. So I would trust the estimates. And then we would seek your approval with the first payment in 2023. So it would use eligibility in 2022. And that should really give us, 6-8 months of time to really start marketing this and getting the word out.
So your potential next steps is really very close to a motion,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily to approve the program, but to approve exactly what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you need any of these parameters determined just for the, I think there's, uniform appeal to this across the board. So the question is how many answers do you need today to get a go ahead to flesh out the program?
I believe with the ordinance, we don't necessarily need all the parameters, but if you have some thoughts on where you see this program going, and if you prefer the 100% with a max of 250 as we've recommended, or something else, I think what that will help us do is really fine tune the estimates more so than the ordinance. And I'm not going to lie to you. these ordinances are very similar to one another until you get to the nitty gritty of what the eligibility is. And so I have a feeling that the individual who wrote several of them happens to be our solicitor. And so I feel like so he would probably be able to help us put together this ordinance rather quickly. There a lot of what is in the ordinance, I'm going to get to my point here, a lot of what's in the ordinance is really providing what is in the act, more so than what the eligibility is. So I think for us, the parameters will be helpful for us as we start to look at what does this program look like and how much staff time would it take? Because if you decide to go with, we're offering this in the 8 municipalities, where there is currently an ordinance, that is a very different story in terms of processing time than countywide, for example.
So it sounds like you would need something like 100% with a maximum of $250 county property tax rebate. Would be a countywide program, stuff like that. You would need to move for.
Yeah.
Well, I'll give it a shot, and my colleagues, we can, try again if it doesn't sound right. But I'll make a motion that a draft ordinance be drawn up using feedback from today regarding a countywide tax credit for firefighters, EMS personnel, of which the specifics will be identified. It will be a program that will be 100% of property tax, county property tax, maximum of $250 per year. Be a countywide program. Staff will continue to gather information, provide that information and draft ordinance to the Board of Commissioners at a future date. Sorry, that's the best I could do.
I would ask Commissioner that that motion be amended to add the word volunteer.
Absolutely. I will make that amendment as suggested.
And I'm sorry, Commissioner, I was busy thinking and listening. Did you mention rebate or credit, or did you just say move forward with investigation?
I believe I said rebate.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to second that motion as amended.
Okay, additional questions? Comments? On the floor, it's seconded. There's no other comments, questions?
I do have a comment. And Angela, this is being recorded, so you'll be able to get that specific. Okay.
Ever done?
She probably got all the words written down.
Yeah, got it. All right, sorry.
Okay. Okay, so at this point, I think we're prepared for a vote. So call the vote. All in favor of the proposed motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Or not opposed, passes unanimously. Thank you all for your work on this. Devil's in the details. Appreciate your work so far. Appreciate your work.
And the ordinance should really hit all those specifics. Great job.
Yeah, fantastic, thank you.
Such a short period. of
Thank
time.
you.
Found a way to, it doesn't help the renters, right? Yeah.
What you can do about that.
Okay, we have one other discussion item today. Everybody a chance to kind of gather themselves. Cut out, if you just want to read the. In the room,
About
do
how
that.
the county state.
All right. Yeah, thanks,
Thank you.
Wes.
See ya. Thanks, Wes.
So our last item is our update on the 2021 year-end fund balance. So got the close completed.
We're still under audit,
Okay.
still under audit, but I think the numbers are pretty solid. And I'll try not to make it too long-winded, so, because I know we've been here for a while. But the good news is we ended the year with a $37,332,858 unassigned fund balance. That's 141 days of fund balance. The bad news is we did decrease fund balance a little bit, $641,948. And when comparing this to our presentation in October, the fund balance is $60,000 less than what we projected. That's pretty amazing. I don't think we've ever been that close before. Now, there's some things that happened in the middle of it that I'll go over later to talk about, but projection was pretty close. So there's some major changes that occurred from 2021 that since we were so close, I didn't want to spend a lot of time talking about that. But the major changes from 2021 is we had a lot of additional grant funding and offsetting expenses. They didn't impact the general fund, the bottom line, but you'll see big increases in our revenues and expenses when you see the capper and explanation.
These are one time, you're saying?
Yeah, that's like the emergency rental assistance grant. Oh, and I did, there we go. I did do it. Thank you. The CDBG recovery grant and the IGT payment to the state was moved from May to December because of selling the nursing home. So those things, the revenues and offsetting expenses. The real estate tax revenue increased $1 million or about 1.9%. 1.9%. I wanted to bring to your attention that when we did the FAC, we actually projected that being $400,000 than it came in. I talked a lot about, we're seeing collections up, but the assessment base didn't change to support it. I was worried collections would fall off towards the end of the year. They did. So as a budget, as a projection to actual, we're down 400,000. And there's some things that happened on the expense side that boosted it back up. That's why there's not a big difference. Salary and benefits from 2020, I put 2000, see, I'm stuck in too many years. From 2020, increased 978,000. Salaries were 1.2 million or 4%, and benefits actually decreased about 260,000 or 2%.
I have one question. So now, earlier this year or late last year, we did have a bunch of discussion about, in that climate, we were very concerned about what might happen with assessments and the assessment base. So are we seeing that? Are we seeing anything there that gives cause for concern?
So the assessment base itself is growing at about 1.5% to 2% a year. So we are seeing that like they creep up a bit. As far as appeals,
Is what I'm getting at.
I wish Les was here to talk about it more. We did have a major appeal come off recently, but that was the hospital.
Right.
Yes.
But I don't think there's been any other major commercial appeals yet.
Okay.
Yeah. See, I did it a second time. On the next page, it says major changes from 2021. It should be 2020. That's what happens when I rush. Election equipment decreased 3,900,000, and subsidies increased 2,800,000.
What does that mean when you say election equipment decrease?
We had the purchases in 2020. So from between 2020 and 2021.
That was the year it was purchased.
So I believe it spanned 19 and 20.
Yeah.
And I think when we received it was in 2020. It impacted 3 years of our subsidies increased 2,800,000. 911 is 1.5 million of that. Children and youth 500,000. The nursing home 631,000, and criminal justice about 200,000. Some of the things that actually impacted the expenditure side of the equation, in 2021, we had 2 major projects that weren't completed by year end. There was IMTO equipment was ordered timely, but it wasn't received. So that will come out of the 2022 budget. So capital's down a little bit because of that. And the other one is the towers for 911 weren't completed completed, we were gonna pay that out of the general fund. But since they're not completed and our fund balance is where it is, we may transfer that into either a bond issue or other funding sources. And then on the last page, I always like to give full disclosure to show what's changed in our fund balance between the categories. Our unsigned fund balance decreased 827,000, restricted increased 430, and reserve for prepaid increased 400,000.
Dana, can we go back to the previous page?
Absolutely.
Subsidies increase, CMRC 631,000.
Yes.
That is for 2021.
One,
Okay, but there will be more in 2022.
substantially more. We are still paying invoices and we're still getting material amounts.
So the number for CNRC could potentially change.
No, the 631 is as
That's
of
set.
December
Yeah.
31st.
Okay.
2022. it's
Only for 2021 though.
Yeah, 2022 is still.
Okay, I thought we were still receiving invoices for 21, but that'll just impact 22.
We've received some, but they're not material.
Thank you.
So I don't think we would have to modify.
Okay.
I'll show up at 22.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Any additional questions? I try to get these to you earlier. But numbers were changing because of the nursing home and a few other things, so I didn't want to do it too early this
Let's have
year.
the opportunity for follow-up questions with you.
Correct.
So, no, this is good.
Yeah.
And I have pages of notes of what the actual changes were. I was just trying to get the really big things. And since we were so close, 60,000 is amazing. We would probably never do that again.
Quick brag. That's
And the FAC is scheduled for.
The end of May, I believe, or it's in May. Either end of April or May, somewhere in there.
Okay.
We were just talking about it earlier today and I forgot about it
I
already.
know, I can see it on the schedule, I just can't see the date.
It's easy, right? Okay, there's no further questions on the fund balance document. I guess we just owe you our thanks for your informative presentation.
Thank you.
Takes a village.
All right, in that case, we'll move on to item 5, which is the other business. So we have additional issues to come before the finance meeting. Not hearing anything, so in that case, we'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Adjourn.